We are here with the John Havlicek episode of Sports Tonight, episode number 17, coming in strong. And there are a couple of things on the agenda today. A little bit of talk about the NFL with that season coming up in a little over a month, a few weeks at least. And then some NBA offseason talk. To start, I want to begin talking about another Bleacher Report article, especially because we're in the off season, give it a little idea. But the article I want to look at, headline is Every NBA Team's Biggest Hole to Fill After Free Agency by Zach Buckley. This was published a week ago, July 13th. And just with free agency time to come to a close, a lot of teams probably accomplished what they would have wanted, but there are definitely some holes for those to fill, those same teams to fill. So I want to look at those. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on each team, on a single team, unless I feel the need to in the moment. But with that being said, let's get into it. One of 30 is Atlanta Hawks, and they have defense listed. As a fan of the sport, I completely agree with this. For the five um, 5 years that Trey Young has been in the league, they have been able to build a competent defense around them. And when you look at Trey Young, they kind of had this mold of trying to recreate what the Warriors had done with drafting a big two guard, drafting some big wings that had potential upside on defense, such as DeAndre Hunter and Cam Reddish. Cam Reddish is obviously off the team, so that experiment failed. They obviously brought in DeJounte Murray this past year. He is a plus defender, solid on offense too, but it didn't help enough. And so, while Trae Young's been on the team, they've had a top 10 offense, seventh in efficiency this past season. But on the flip side, he often edges the team towards the bottom 10 on the defensive side. So this offseason, they traded out John Collins for Sadiq Bey, which in terms of defense is kind of a lateral move. And Yeka Kondu, if he could get more minutes, that would be able to help them in theory. But with him being in, they definitely miss his rebounding and his paint presence. And I think what they're really lacking, they have DeJounte. DeJounte is a good person to have, but they need a lockdown wing defender. I think that would help them the most. And like DeAndre Hunter is solid on defense, but hasn't turned into anything special as of right now. They obviously have AJ Drifted and Johnson that could cut it, but the optimism won't. They need more than just optimism when it comes. They need to see results from those two. And if they ever want to get to the point where they're contending on a yearly basis, they need to substantially improve that defense. But yeah, so far I liked what they said, liked what they mentioned about it. Moving on to the second team, Boston Celtics, front court depth and defensive versatility. Now, how speaking strictly off talent, the Celtics have a hugely stacked front court with Al Horford, Rob Williams, and the newcomer Kristaps Porzingis. But how often could you expect to have all three of them available? Horford turned 37 this July, and Rob Williams has only made it played more than 40 games twice in 5 years. Kristaps played 75 plus games this past season, but it was his first campaign with 60 or more since 2016-17. So they also lost Grant Williams, who was signed and then traded to Dallas. So with the aging factor as well as the injury concerns, they are definitely lacking a defensive versatility in that front. Grant Williams especially had the ability to play really solid defense with the bigs and had solid enough lateral quickness to be able to keep in front of the smaller, usually quicker guards. And O'Shea Brissett, if he can't shoot it consistently enough, that's not he's not going to help be able to help them. I think in terms of off on the offensive end, this team is really solid with Jason Tatum. Not at this point, I don't know what will happen with Jalen Brown. I know there's talk of him wanting out, talk of him wanting to stay. I'm not going to touch on that until something actually happens, whatever that may be. And so, but yeah, with Boston so far, I really like that. I think that's going to be what holds them back the most is their backcourt help and their defensive ability. Moving on to the third team, we have the Brooklyn Nets shot creation. People forget just a year and a half ago, 2 years, they had Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving, which seemed like a pretty cheat code come to fruition, but they're all gone. And now it could be their offense could be on shaky ground. The one bright spot for them this past season, if you could find one, is the fact that after Mikal Bridges was traded from Phoenix to Brooklyn, he took an all-star return. However, the Nets didn't have enough shot creators around him. And so, beyond Bridges, Spencer Dinwiddie is good, solid NBA player. I'm not going to say he's not, but he's not spectacular. Cam Thomas is strictly a scorer at this point, and he has the ability to create his own shot more than some other people. But last year he didn't see a lot of playing. He saw less playing time than his rookie year. And Greek Whitehead, who they picked in the first round, showed some ability of shot making, but due to his lone season, his injury impacted season, with that, he mostly functioned as a 3 and D role guy. So I think this makes sense for them. I have another. I have an idea of who someone they could go after this upcoming season towards the trade deadline if that team would be interested or if that team is struggling, which would help them with shot making, shot creating ability by far, in in an extreme amount. So I like where that's well said there. Quickly moving on to Charlotte, and I completely agree with this. They just have to continue building their young core. Have the mellow ball. They wisely locked him on a max extension this summer. Brandon Miller played solid in summer league, but he hasn't even played a real NBA minute. Not in summer league, but like regular season, and people are already wondering if they should have picked up Stu Henderson. Mark Williams had encouraging moments, but he just did not play a lot considering they had a bad team with not great people around him in his position. Gordon Hayward and Terry Rozier would be the most logical people to get moved if they could find any takers. With Rozier and Hayward's contract, it'll be interesting. And well, there just frankly isn't a huge amount of buzz in Charlotte. TJ Washington remains unsigned. Miles Bridges signed his qualifying offer after not playing last season, following the domestic violence trial. And first round pitch, Knight and Ty Jones just haven't done anything. Let's just be honest. So it's gonna be interesting to see. Moving on to the Chicago Bulls, they list rim protection. Definitely agree. Vucevic just isn't gonna cut it if you're trying to compete for a championship on the defensive level, defensive end at the very least. Somehow they managed to have a top five defense this past season, but considering they have Vucevic, Zach LaVine, and DeMar DeRozan in 2021 and 2022, they were 23rd in defensive efficiency. I'll have a huge on to say on that. Just definitely agree with it though. Moving on to the next group of teams. Cleveland Cavaliers perimeter defense. Their Cavs defense as a whole, when it comes to emo, is really solid. Donovan Mitchell is a good defender for his size, but Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell don't have a ton of size between them, and they definitely aren't getting their minutes for defense. But on the plus side, Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, that combo in the front court, can clean up some of those mistakes that when they get beat. But the question is, how long can they plug up the paint at a efficient high level like they have been? And that's what should scare this team, and this should worry this team, this Cavs team, going into the season. For the Dallas Mavericks, rim runner is desperately what they need, and I don't have a huge amount to say on this, considering I agree with it completely, and there just isn't a ton to say. With Luka and Kyrie as their top two people, you definitely need someone who can help that dreadful defense. I mean, they knew this. They invested in JaVale McGee this past in the 2022 free agency, and then used their 12th pick this summer on Derek Lively the second. So it'll be interesting. I mean, moving on to Denver, they're just coming off a NBA championship, so I think the only thing they really need to think about, like really take care of now before it becomes a problem, is just replacing Bruce Brown. I mean, he's the big guy that was brought away from them this past in this free agency period was Bruce Brown. So that's why if you could just find someone, even maybe not as good, but just someone who can do what he did for them, that would be completely invaluable to their success this coming year and their chances at repeating. With the Detroit Pistons, shooting is definitely going to be a struggle, given the fact that ESPN projects they will start Bogdanovich with Cade Cunningham, who is looking like he's going to participate in camp following a season-ending knee surgery, shin surgery, excuse me. Jaden Ivey, Stuart Thompson, and James Wiseman. Cunningham is only a 30.9% three-point shooter. Ivy shot 34.3 as a rookie. Thompson still needs a ton of work with his jumper. And James Wiseman only has 16 made threes in 84 career games. The only player in that lineup you could say is above average or at least average from the three-point line is Bogdanovich. Everyone else is below compared to the rest of the league and what league average usually is. So, but when it comes to the open court and running the fast break, this should be a fun team to watch. It's when they get into the half court and are ranked 28th in half court efficiency this past season that it could become a problem. When it comes to the Warriors' perimeter athleticism, it did. Maybe they'll suffer most from their lack of size, as Dario Saric at 6'10 is their team's tallest player. But it's the Warriors. They kind of invented small ball with running Draymond at the five for so many of those years during their championship runs. So if there's any team that can do it, it'll be them. The issue is they're a lot older and far less athletic than they were at that point. What they should really bank on, though, is Jonathan Kuminga to take a huge leap. That's what they should want. Really hope. For the Rockets, I think they have a nice direction going following this offseason, where they signed Van Vliet and Dylan Brooks. And they hired head coach Ime Udoka. I think the worry should definitely be their shot making. I mean, Van Vliet from the field during his career has been a great shooter, percentage wise. Brooks. Now I watched him at Oregon too. He takes a lot of shots and well, a lot of people would consider not great shots. So that's never a good combination. And Jalen Green still hasn't shot. It's just shooting below 45% from in his career. And Jabari Smith Jr. was a rookie last year. He shot just under 41%, 30 from three. But if he can take the nice jump like he flashes of in summer league, that'll be really good for them. Indiana, I definitely should agree with this. Just reliability in their front court. Right now, the Indiana Pacers look really solid at every position, including because you'd obviously have Tyrese Halliburton run the one, Buddy Hield maybe run the two. Obviously, you have Miles Turner at the five. So it's at least three of four. And they had signed Bruce Brown, so he could play your three. But if you could get past Siakam, like there's been talks of, that would be really big for them, and I could see them making a run in the play. Los Angeles just another starting caliber forward. I mean, you have Russ who played really well at times. PG and Kawhi are obviously getting up a little older in age, but they're still very impactful players. Then you have Zubac down low holding it down. What they really have to hope for is health. Because I think for them, they just need to find someone who could shoot a little bit more. Because they already have Russ, who is a super great shooter, and Zubac, who obviously is not a shooter at all. And so, and they just need health. They just need to be able to stay healthy. For the Lakers, I think they just need to add another center big man, especially if they're trying to run any of those two big lineups they were. Because they re-signed the people they needed to in Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura, grabbed Gabe Vincent, Torian Prince, and Cam Reddish and Jackson Hayes. So that took care of some of their other issues. They're, if they could just get another big, most notably Christian Wood would be the kind of guy you're looking for. But if that doesn't work, if you're looking for strength and shot blocking, I think Bismack Biyombo should be considered. Solid at those two things specifically. With Memphis, obviously they added Marcus Smart this past year. Although I think their issue there is to now have John Morant, who will miss part of this season, and Desmond Bain and Marcus Smart, who are under 6'5". Desmond Bain is 6'5". And so I think the question to ask is who will man the three spot the most often. Miami Heat, they have Damian Lillard listed. I will say, if they were able to get him, it would definitely help their offense. But other than that, I'm not going to say anything else on this until something happens. But yeah, I think the biggest thing for them, especially now, is they need to get a guy who can play make off the bench when Drew Holiday isn't in the game. And so just be able to lighten the load. Doesn't necessarily mean someone has to be great, but just someone who can all relieve some of the weight on Holiday's shoulders, given the fact that they lost Javon Carter to the Bulls in free agency. With Minnesota, I think in order to find what they list as a long-term point guard, I think maybe you have to look to move Cat and fully focus on going for, even though I know they want to win now, I think they just have to focus on the development of Anthony Edwards and Jalen McDaniels and try and trade Cat and look for a young point guard too, younger point guard who they can turn into something. Because at this point, Mike Conley is turning 36 in 3 months in October. Yeah, for New Orleans shooting, especially if they're going to continue to try and work with Zion and Brandon Ingram, because with the Knicks, I think if you don't try and get a star now, best thing to do would just keep moving forward with the core that you have in Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle. Julius Randle has been an all-star, and Jalen Brunson this past year put up those all-star caliber numbers. With OKC, I think they like I like the direction that they're going with getting obviously quantity and quality and an impressive amount of young people players with Chet, Pokusevsky, Jalen Williams, Shea, Josh Giddey, obviously. But I think they need size, especially once they start to figure out where they're wanting to go. Chet, Poku are only listed weighing a combined 385 pounds. They only have three people over 225 pounds. So that's I think something they need. Orlando, especially after this past year, where you had an fantastic season, you just have to figure out a way to improve your shooting. Shot 47% as a team from the field, 34.5 from three, and 78.5 from the line. Jet Howard, lottery pick, could help if he finds those meaningful minutes. But in terms of Anthony Black, that isn't what he's strongest at. He's by far more of a playmaker. Philadelphia, I don't really know what to say. I think the issue is that with them is that they have good players all around and good wings in Tobias Harris and PJ Tucker, but they don't have a real reliable 3 and D wings. Tobias Harris has always been way better on offense than defense, and the opposite can be said about PJ Tucker. With Phoenix, I think they have the makings of a contender. Obviously, health will play a big factor in that. And I think one thing they should look to add is to try and get a stretch big, stretch five, or even stretch four, really. That's around DeAndre Ayton, who is a really solid mid range shooter from the center position. I think I would disagree with this. They have listed as stretch big lower. No, I think what really needs to bode well for them is for DeAndre Ayton just trying to be more aggressive. Now, at this point, he's going to be the fourth option, but he still has to at least look for those opportunities. And I think that will definitely help bode well for them. Now, they did sign Bull, who I think might help. Bull hasn't always been the best 3 point shooter, but I think it'll help them out. Purposes of Portland Trailblazers, that's what Mount Damian Lillard is worth. I'm not going to say anything on this other than that they need to be patient. Sacramento obviously had a fantastic year last year for their standards. Set the lead all-time mark for offensive efficiency. However, it also landed just eighth overall net efficiency at plus minus 2.6 points per 100 possessions. Now you ask yourself, what is that produce a bigger net bump than that number? Sure, but that's what happens when the best offensive team or efficiency team is also the 21st in defensive efficiency. 24th, excuse me, which was the worst among all postseason participants, playoff playing teams included in that. So I think they need to finish out their offseason with adding more defense, and I think things will bode well for them. Birds, I think they just need to get a primary playmaker, like they say, for what they now. Just someone who is a really above average shot trader for themselves, but also consistently puts him in the right position. They have Trey Jones, but he falls short of that. He's not a good enough shooter for teams to have to respect him. 2.3 or 3.8 attempts per 36 minutes, and he only hits 27% of them. So I think that'll help them. With Raptors spacing, I think that's true, regardless of whether Gotham leaves, because they already lost Fred VanVleet. Bottom five in effective field goal percentage and true shooting percentage as a team. So that'll be interesting to watch. I think for Utah, especially after they traded Mike Conley at the deadline, they need a guy, offensive player, playmaker, initiator. Jordan Clarkson, who they have the score above everything. Same for John Winston. And they don't really have anybody else. They have talent, though, but the question is, can they find somebody to mesh that together with what they're looking to do? And the final team, Washington Wizards, long-term potential. 100,000%. Especially after dealing Bradley Beal, they take a bit of a flyer on, well, their seventh round draft pick, BLSC. Hope I'm saying that right. But at this point, he is a completely blank canvas. He's 18 and he has a lot of tools at his disposal. And hey, it's completely possible that this never pans out for them. However, there is a universe somewhere where he can become a two-way wrecking ball that teams fear for a decade or more. So, with that being said, I apologize that took a little bit longer than I was hoping. However, in the episode coming early next week, I will get to the NFL and the stuff I'd want to talk about this evening. So, with that, thank you all for watching. See you next time.